Happy Tuesday. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for what is going to be another jam-packed daily cryptocurrency market update. And if you are new around here and finding yourself on my channel for the first time today, don't forget to check out that subscribe button because we drop an update just like this one around 1 p.m. UK time every single day to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space, but also the broader markets. That's exactly what we are going to be doing in this video. And we have a lot to talk about as always. We are going to be starting things off with some remarks from the head of the Bank of International Settlements, who is, of course, Augustin Carstens, that is essentially calling for a new financial system, and this system needs to be digitally transformative, i.e. blockchain and distributed ledgers is what he's really talking about. So we're going to be starting the video off there. Bank of International Settlements have played a key role throughout the world in regards to collapses and bailouts and fundings and things like this. And actually, it's very interesting. And one of our reasons that we think assets are going to do well is because we're going to see a hyper devaluation of debt through proliferation of it, i.e. the central banks actually printing money in the form of issuing debt to buy debt back. Okay? That's going to increase the money supply. We know what happens with assets with the money supply. This is going to see assets do well. In yesterday's video, I did a way longer update for my Patreons on Sunday. Guys, we are doing our 1 to 100x or 1 to 100k challenge. I've taken £1,000 and I'm going to try and turn it into £100,000 with 5 cryptocurrencies that I believe are in the right sector and that are small enough to give those kind of returns. There's no guarantees there. Also, first thing you've got to do is absolutely check out Sunday's meeting where I look at the markets geopolitically across the board, all different indexes, different assets, different asset classes. They're all pointing in the same direction. They're all screaming for a big run. And we did look at that briefly yesterday in the form of a lot of different indexes, the DAX, the S&P, some of the Chinese indexes, Japan's, Nikkei, and also gold and things, all setting up for what's to come. And they are deliberately killing the old system to usher in a new one. And of course, Augustin kind of hinting at that a little bit. Then we have news that we're going to be covering in regards to Robinhood. Another one bites the dust. Gary Gensler is Gary Gensler, the SEC are the SEC, and they are trying to regulate through enforcement and bullying people, basically. And actually, they do not have clear jurisdiction. And even they would largely admit this in the form of Gary Gensler not even being able to answer the question, is Ethereum a security? They do not have jurisdiction awarded to them for regulating the cryptocurrency space in the manner that they are. Undoubtedly, some cryptos would, you could argue, come under the security bracket. But even in regards to, very quick little point here, the Ethereum futures ETF that they've granted, they don't specify that they're SFPs, which stands for Security Future Products, which means they don't have jurisdiction over them. Obviously, you've got Tom Emmer, one of the Congress members for Minnesota, 6th District, chiming in on this saying regulation by intimidation. You know, they're not 100% coming off clean in this whole fight. Then we're going to look at inflows into ETFs, crypto exchange traded products, and then we'll talk about Bitcoin and its price. A lot to get into, guys. Let's dive into it all. So, this is Mr. Augustus Carson. So he's the head of the Bank of International Settlements. He is a very distinct figure, isn't he? And I'm not going to say why. I think you guys have imaginations and you can figure that out yourself. Something we need, sometimes the dyslexic in me, I never thought I'd end up on a situation where I'd be reading things out publicly. I do apologize. Sometimes we need giant leaps that deliver a fundamental rethink of the financial system and foster the development of entirely new architectures, said the head of Bank of International Settlements. To create a coherent vision for future financial systems, we will have to supplement cutting-edge technologies with an efficient economic and financial architecture and robust governance and regulatory arrangements. Tell me they're not talking. This industry came about at the perfect time when the traditional financial system really broke and has never recovered from. And I'm referring to 2008 here, which is where you had a real merging of banking and kind of government. I always get the comment that the Fed is not the government. Well done. Nobody is making the argument that it is. But they are very much in sync. And actually, the government trumps the Fed. Look at Jerome Powell's supposed QT being dwarfed by Janet Yellen's QE, and she's a government agent. They instruct one another, or really, the government instructs the Fed. And when you have, if anyone's read Marx's manifesto, two things really important: a progressive tax system that doesn't benefit anyone, by the way, it just makes everybody poorer. And if you disagree with me, go and look at what taxes, we're running deficits at this point. Okay, so we're funding things through printing money, not tax money. And a central government. Sorry, not a central government. Of course, central government's important, but a central bank. So that you have a monopoly over money and you can sort of control people as a result of that. So very interesting what's going on. I just thought this was interesting. Not seen many people talk about but this is really, there was a comment actually made, I think it was below this one, by Manico. The BIS has done a great job of managing the international system since it was created by the private European central banks. Please go and look at banking. JP Morgan and Citi in 1930. The collapse of 1931. Britain dropped the gold standard and devalued its sterling in 1931. FDR confiscating gold in 1933. BIS helped finance both sides of World War II. The collapse of Bretton Woods in 1971. And the near collapse of everything in 2008. So they are, I think, engineering, and Ray Dalio does a great bit on how the fiat systems die, a new system through the proliferation of the old one, and they'll provide a new horse that's likely going to be blockchain based. And I'm doing a lot of looking into things like IoT, the Internet of Things, and things like this. It's a very sci-fi-esque future that we're moving towards rapidly. It's going to be here before you know it. Let's talk about some other news. Unfortunately, not really that much more cheery. Robinhood, this is from Reuters. Reuters are great people to follow, by the way. Also, the Financial Times covering this. Robinhood gets a Wells notice from the US. So I actually just want to take a look at Robinhood quickly from a chart point of view. So we got in pre-break, and we think this is now in a stage 2, which is an uptrend, and that you're going to see continuation on the back end of. So we're bullish on Robinhood despite all of this. Let's go back to the article. It reads, May the 6th, Reuters, retail trading platform Robinhood Markets said on Monday it received an enforcement action notice from the US Securities and Exchange Commission, also known as the SEC, on May the 4th over crypto tokens traded on its platform. The company said it received a so-called Wells notice, which the SEC issues when it's planning to bring enforcement action against them. Such notices do not necessarily mean the company has engaged in wrongdoing, yet they have to go through a legal proceeding to find out. We firmly believe that the assets listed on our platform are not securities, and we look forward to engaging with the SEC to make clear just how weak any case against Robinhood Crypto would be. Dan Gallagher, Chief Legal Compliance and Corporate Affairs Officer at Robinhood, said the SEC has adopted a tough stance towards the digital currency industry, arguing most cryptocurrency tokens are securities and subject to its regulation rules. While crypto firms have accused it of overreach, the regulator declined to comment on the enforcement action notice. If necessary, we will use our resources to contest this matter in court, Robinhood CEO Vlad Tenev said on an X post. We can dive over to that post in just a second. Coinbase, the world's largest public traded cryptocurrency exchange, has also previously argued that crypto assets, unlike stocks and bonds, do not meet the definition of securities, a position held by the vast majority of the crypto industry. The SEC is engaging in legal fight against Coinbase that I believe they're going to win. Robinhood enables customers to deposit, so on and so forth. So this is obviously new, very interesting. We've got Tom Emery chiming in on this, a congressman. There's a lot of people actually against what the SEC is doing massively, and then you've got a few that are very much for it. But he is basically saying regulation by intimidation. And it's a land grab. It's a power grab. The SEC want as much jurisdiction as they can possibly get, and they're testing the waters with crypto, and they're not backing down. Although, actually, not that long ago, you had two SEC lawyers resigning over gross misconduct in regards to the Debtbox case, where they blatantly lied, and they're doing, similar things elsewhere. And I think we're going to see a lot of things coming out of the woodworks. My personal stance is everything I'm looking at technically leads me to believe a bull market's coming. That isn't going to get cancelled by a regulatory nightmare that the SEC is trying to launch. This is the first time ever one day flows all green, no red for the Bitcoin bunch, not going to spike the football like some did during the outflow period. But we'll point out that over 95% of the ETFs, investors hold during what was a pretty nasty and persistent downturn. Will same happen next time? Who knows? Put the track record says it with pretty high percent again. As we said, outflows will happen, so will inflows, but over time, two things tend to be true, or for ETFs, net growth and relatively strong hands. Yeah, and this is the broader trend. We think it's fundamentally Bitcoin, eventually Ethereum, and all these others are now on. And we also made the point of, when you see news headlines, news is there to manipulate you, which is why we champion being a technical trader, assessing the charts. People think it's voodoo, that's fine. You don't need to play in this sandbox, okay? Go play somewhere else. When you can assess a chart technically, you can quiet down all the noise. And the noise, when charts are bottoming, the news is always horrific. When actually, that's the perfect time to be stepping in. When you see these headlines, record-breaking outflows, okay, well, what will follow that? A not record-breaking outflow and maybe a good period. And you're seeing this play out very much as we said. Also, if we look at what is happening with coin shares, these are great people to follow, by the way, in regards to they don't just track ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs, they track products across the board and across various geopolitical districts. We saw continued outflows. Digital asset investment products saw outflows for the third consecutive week, totaling $435 million. Likely as people take profits for May, and they'll come back on St. Leger's Day. The last thing that I want to do with you guys actually is touch on what Bitcoin's doing. So we can get off Robinhood and we can go over to Bitcoin, which we still have technical direction for. We were looking at some short-term targets for Bitcoin. So we're looking at this at a bit of a head and shoulders. Actually, this is still quite strong. It did dip and you did run what would be your traditional stop. We always say you need to allow a bit of leeway with crypto because it's a very volatile, risky asset. And anybody that's tried to trade this market will know that if you adhere to traditional stops, which you should do for risk management, you'll get run consistently. This is how this space works. It can be very easily, certainly from an exchange point of view, made to tip and just tick your stop. So I always put my stops just below traditionally where people think they should be. So we'd have been safe on this, likely gone for this one down here. Is this going to play out? Are we going to see that run to all-time highs and then essentially set up what could be a bigger structure? We will see, but we'll keep you up to date on it as we go along. The bull market's still very much intact, in my opinion. Let's look at total 2 very, very quickly, which is probably the most important chart for me as I'm majority in altcoins for the reason that I think altcoins are going to outperform Bitcoin. Some of ours already have. We'll see whether they do. I do think this is going to bottom form that right shoulder and you're going to see that run to $3.7 trillion, in my opinion. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to love and leave you to your triumphant Tuesdays and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching. See you all in the next.